We welcome you and are so grateful that you've decided to be with us for the next hour as we talk about educational technology essentials together in this space. My name is Joseph Pearson, and I have the honor of moderating today's discussion. I'd like to begin by asking everyone who's present to please type in the chat space where you are in the world and your favorite educational technology tool. A little later, I'll share with you some data from the Moreland University community. The community itself engaged in a similar conversation and completed a poll about their favorite educational technology tools, and I'll be sure to share that data with you. As we get started, I'd like to talk a little bit about Moreland University. Our mission here at Moreland University is teaching teachers around the world to be resourceful problem solvers and tech-savvy educators through an online collaborative activity-based learning system designed for tomorrow's students in a dynamic and diverse world. We accomplish this mission, we live into this mission through our nationally accredited online teacher certification programs, master's degrees, and our professional development. And we've been doing so for a long time, having served teachers in over 160 countries over the past 10 years. We'll start with some panelist introductions, and then we're going to dive right in to 4 different subject areas. First, we're going to talk about effective tools, then integration strategies for those tools, then some challenges and considerations. And then after we do a quick spotlight of our educational technology master's degree program, we'll finish with a question that you're going to choose. We invite you to participate in a poll where you're going to help us define what we're going to talk about in our very last question.
Hi, my name is Ryan Paper. I live in the United States. Sorry, everyone, I'm having some technology issues. I have been teaching for about 9 years now. I've taught at the middle school level, and now I am currently a digital learning specialist, which means that I work with teaching teachers how to use and integrate some of these technology tools into their classroom and helping educate them and their students about the 21st century skills needed moving forward. I've been with Moreland for about 6 months now, and I'm loving every second of it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Epernay Kyles. I am located in Washington, D.C. I am a 2-time alum of Moreland University and teach now, where I did the teacher certification program from 2014 to 2015 and returned for my master's in 2017. I've spent about 11 years teaching early childhood in Washington, D.C., as well as serving in different capacities as a family engagement facilitator and curriculum writer for the District of Columbia Public Schools. And I returned to Moreland in 2020 as a faculty member and have been enjoying it very much.
Hello, everyone, wherever you are. My name is Darla Cahill, and I had to count. I've been with Moreland for 7 years. This will be my 7th year. And before that, I started out in academia in the late last century. I'll just leave it at that, when everybody was going virtual. I spent time with those on the forefront. I spent 10 years with the University of Phoenix and just loved this space. I moved into education technology for a number of years, bringing some of those tech tools that were being developed to the North American market. I live in Michigan. I love working for Moreland. It is growing, it is fun, and it is innovative, and I'm just very happy to be here. Thank you.
So everyone, you can see that I have collected together in this space some powerful speakers who are going to bring really unique perspectives to the conversation of essentials of educational technology. Last month, we talked about artificial intelligence, and we dove deeply into some very specific technology. This month, I'd like to open that topic a little bit more broadly to the idea that all teachers need access to educational technology in all forms, regardless of their level of comfortability with it, as we seek to step together into the rest of this 21st century. So Teachers have the power to change the lives of students and prepare them for success in the digital age. We need to be equipped with those essential skills and resources and tools that are crucial for success in today's educational technology world. Together in this webinar, we're going to explore fundamental skills and essential resources for staying up to date with EdTech. We'll also dive into popular and innovative tools, discussing their benefits and drawbacks, so that you'll learn how to use these tools to enhance student engagement, foster collaboration, and drive better learning outcomes, the reason we're all here. We're going to dive right in. Effective tools. Panelists, in the chat space, you'll see your question, and I'm going to ask Darla if you wouldn't mind leading us. From your experience and that of your candidates in the Teach Now program, what are some of the most effective educational technology tools and resources available for teachers today? What are the benefits and drawbacks of these tools from your experience? And panelists, feel free to share examples of the technology or the tool. Thanks, Darla.
Thanks, Joey. You know, I'm going to take a broader approach to this because I think for me, and the trend that I've been seeing, especially from candidates that are part of the Teach Now program here at Moreland University, is getting comfortable, getting the confidence to even pick a tool. I think that's where it starts. And you do that by finding a source, a podcast, an online digital resource like EdSurge, start a virtual PLC, gain the confidence and the knowledge to reach out and look for those tools. The second step, make sure they align with the learning outcomes, which was one of the responses for your third poll question there, Joey. There has to be a reason to use the tool. There has to be a reason to bring it into your classroom, to know your students well enough that it's going to be effective. And if it's not, you better have a plan B. And if I could pick a couple of tools, I think we're moving into a space also where not only can we find tools, but we can find tools that already have lesson plans built in. We can find tools that have social, emotional learning components built in. That's the new wave of tech tools out there. One of my favorite is the Global Oneness Project. They have immersive videos and storytelling curricula, and they have lesson plans already built. Grades 3 to 12, they're global, they connect. The Institute for Humane Education is another great resource for curriculum that really brings forward this solutionary mindset. We can all use these with things like Google Classroom and all these other tools. There's also this beautiful layering of tools that's occurring right now. So that's what I like. One that came up in a class recently is called Quandary. I'll drop it in the chat. It's actually a game that they play. It's very easy to use. I like games and stuff that go across all platforms, all browsers globally, so that all of these children can get in and play. It's actually a nonprofit teaching tool, but it embeds things like critical thinking, empathy, making ethical decisions. And that's sort of where we are with all of this. It's not just a tool. It's now surrounded by this emotional component, this global component, and having the courage and the knowledge to just take that step and try it in your classroom. I hope I answered the question, Joey.
I think that you took a question and created from it an even more interesting discussion. And I'd like to invite Ryan and Epernay to chime in now, talking about how we can, as Darla mentioned, use projects and podcasts and other layering tools to bring diverse technologies into our classroom and to think about how technology is becoming a global component of teaching and learning. It's enhancing our social and emotional learning in many ways, not just helping us to teach and learn. Ryan, Epernay, what would you like to add to that or to your experience with the most effective EdTech tools?
Okay, so one thing that I think really changed educational technology was the implementation of Google Docs in the Google Suite and being able to collaborate in real time with other people. And I think when you have that opportunity, especially looking at the poll that we have here, looking at the collaboration piece, you really need something that can go beyond just a document or just a slideshow. And so the program that I really like is called Canva. And that's something that we use at Moreland. And Canva is really nice because they are constantly evolving. And they are constantly trying to find ways to create digital whiteboard spaces for students or allow students to create and market different ideas. They have slideshow components. And so everything that Darla was saying, this is a great way to kind of create those ideas that she was sharing with us and put them out there for the world to see and to really put your own spin and touch to it. And one thing that Canva really does that I think is really beneficial for teachers is they have a Canva education plan. And so if you are affiliated with a school, you can log in with your school's email and it will actually give you a quote unquote premium account with different resources and more tools for your students to use. Last webinar, you discussed the artificial intelligence. They're actually working on their own component of artificial intelligence inside of Canva. And so what they're really trying to do is design this process that's going to create a lot of different unique features for students. And as we continue to look at what's coming next, they're going to be able to do a lot of that inside of this program. And then you can start to pull in other programs, other resources, and tie them all together. But ultimately, I think Canva is definitely something you should check out if you're looking at trying to integrate more collaboration and presentations into your classroom.
I'd like to echo, I was going to say Canva as well, based off of the based off of the poll, when folks were saying they were not used to video editing or had limited experience with that with iMovie, I'd like to say Canva has templates to actually make videos on there. And from a professional standpoint, I logged into FedEx to purchase some business cards, and they had a direct link to Canva where you could go into Canva to create your own business cards and have them directly printed and sent to you by FedEx. So I'd like to echo that Canva is definitely a resource to look into. And then kind of back to when Darla was saying about seeking videos to help you with your learning. YouTube has become extremely well, especially teaching during the pandemic, when you might have to teach a curriculum and you were not able to have that in-person support coach at your school help you walk through how to teach the curriculum, especially with Eureka Math. I was amazed at how I could go into YouTube and see teachers from over the world teach this Eureka lesson to ensure that I could effectively teach it to my students in an online setting.
YouTube is a powerful tool that brings together so many of the learning modalities, and yet also enables us to create opportunities to learn about diverse topics, anything from information, history, science, math, informational topics to social and emotional topics. And the other piece around sort of personal experiences. And so what I'd like to share and with regard to those personal experiences is the power of an app called Flipgrid, which allows teachers for free to create accounts where they can invite students from around the world to exchange video notes to one another. And in the old days, when we would, when I was a kid, when we would write to our pen pals in other parts of the country or the world, and then receive letters back and be so excited to read the letters. I believe we have now an opportunity to take that excitement and make it even grander by using technology, including Flipgrid, to share video messages back and forth with students and teachers in other parts of the world. That's the technology that I found most effective, and I'm excited to share with this. I wonder, as we sort of continue on, and we talk about these strategies and how, no, I'm sorry, not these strategies, these technologies and how they impact teaching and learning. What are some ways that we can be able to integrate, be mindful and bring them into the classroom? I ask this because many educators feel overwhelmed with the number of tools available and the challenging learning curve to being able to use some of these digital technologies. This happens for me all the time in my work as an educational administrator and a part of a large organization. We're always getting new tools. How can teachers effectively integrate technology into their lessons and enhance learning outcomes?
I'll jump in, Joey, if I can. I would say don't be overwhelmed. Nobody knows it all. Nobody knows all of them. Maybe 10 years ago when EdTech started, but now, especially after COVID, when we all went virtual, there's an explosion of apps and tools. So start simple. The one that everybody shared are great today. They're easy, that we know they're tried and true. We use them with the Teach Now program. Start simple and make sure you are tying the tool into some learning objective, and have a plan B. Always have a plan B, because you saw here tonight, things happen, and be willing to roll with it and gain confidence in using the tool first. Make sure you're confident using it. If you're not, don't use it. Give yourself the time to learn it, to feel supported, to understand how it's going to enhance the learning and the teaching in your classroom. That's what I would start with.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate that. I was going to say start simple. So most folks know PowerPoint. So that is just an easy way that you're familiar with. If you are teaching whole group lessons using a smartboard, if you have a template for your PowerPoint, it's literally just changing the material every day using the same template. Once you become more comfortable with it, start to integrate videos into the PowerPoint, perhaps integrate formative assessments by using Kahoot. I'm dropping in the chat Nearpod, which is a step up from using PowerPoint. So once you feel that you've mastered PowerPoint and able to integrate links and pictures and videos into PowerPoint, your next step could be Nearpod, which encompasses presentation, videos, and chances for students to respond to the content in the presentation.
I think it's awesome that we live in a day and age where we can be overwhelmed with so much material to actually use in our classroom. And I know that doesn't sound great at the moment, but you can now tailor whatever it is that you want your lesson to be, because there are so many resources. And this program might not meet all of your needs, but there's probably another one that does complement it very well. So my advice to you would be, start just like you would a lesson. Start with the intention and the backwards design in mind. What is the overall or the primary goal of using this technology? Is it to use it just to say that you're using it? Is it to use it to create collaboration and communication amongst your students? When you figure that idea out, then you can actually just go all over the internet. You can use these tools that we're talking about as you're trying to learn and play with them to learn more resources about them. Twitter is huge. Twitter has such a good following for educators and digital learning and kind of the EdTech community to just get on there and kind of see different pieces. You can see snapshots, and you can then start to create that PLC conversation with other Twitter users and say, hey, how did you use this in your classroom? I tried it. This is what happened. YouTube is also excellent. I use YouTube to fix things around my house all the time. I use it to learn new skills all the time. It's there, it's free for most people, and most people can access it where you're at. And I think that is just so big. But I think the number one thing would be to find one and give yourself 3 lessons before you decide if you're going to use it or not. Because the first time you do it, it's probably not going to work. Let's just take the negative side of this. The second time you use it, you're going to go, okay, I see potential. And the third time you try it, you're going to either decide, hey, this is worth my time, I really like where we're going, or you've at least got enough data to say, hey, this just isn't for me right now. Maybe we'll try it in some time. But ultimately, we have such an opportunity right now to really prepare our students for any job that they're looking for, how to market themselves, how to prepare, and just learn these skills. I mean, look at this webinar that we're doing right now. We're literally having a conversation just about tech tools, and that wouldn't be possible if we didn't have all these opportunities out there.
I think my final word, Joey, would be to not be afraid. Like, go big. I mean, AR, VR is here, 5G is here. So when you think of AR, VR, Google Earth is an AR, VR experience. Every museum on the planet has an education arm with a virtual experience. do a virtual field trip, sending them out into their community, because there's two things you have to do. And I see that engagement is the number one reason for using the technology tools. You have to bring it into their world. You have to make it interesting to them. And it's easy to do with the websites that are out there that you can go to. You can list 3 websites, have them go explore, and come back and report out. Google Earth with a history class, it's incredible or a geography class. And just ask your students too, what do they want to see with technology? What do they want to learn? Some of the best ideas about using technology for me have come from asking my students.
I'd like to go around again before we move on from this question and ask a maybe a little bit better version of it. I want to know, Ryan, Darla, and Epernay, how you learned an EdTech that you use today. So for instance, I can share that when I began using Zoom whiteboards and then learned that I could use my iPad and the feature of my Apple Pencil as a part of the Zoom whiteboard years ago, it transformed my teaching here at the in the Teach Now program at Moreland University. But the way I learned it, to be very honest with you, was trial and error. I got into the classroom, I said to my students, we're going to try something new. This may be a little messy, but we're going to do it. And through trial and error, I learned. I did not use a YouTube video. I did not use any articles. I just sort of experimented a little bit before they got there in the Zoom room and then with them in class. So with that being said, Epernay, walk us through one example in your life, one EdTech tool and how you learned it and how you use it.
Sure. So someone had mentioned Loom in the chat and I dropped it because it's an amazing resource. When I was actually doing curriculum development for District of Columbia Public Schools for virtual and in-person learning, I had to get familiar with Microsoft Stream, which is very similar to Loom. So teaching young learners who couldn't quite read yet, you had to record yourself walking through Canva and the assignments on Canva, as well as recording yourself reading a book perhaps to these students. So I had to watch videos on how to learn Microsoft Stream to be able to record my screen for my students. Moving away from Microsoft Stream, I'm now using Loom in the same capacity of being able to record myself for my students as well as my candidates in Moreland if I ever need to make a presentation for them. What's also amazing about Loom is that you can directly comment and chat on the video as well as provide emojis and feedback on the video. So it kind of has one-upped Microsoft Stream and it's been appealing to me.
Ryan or Darla, can you share one specific example of a technology and how you learned it and integrated it? Ryan, you want to go?
Absolutely. So we in my current district use Canvas as a learning management system. And Canvas is very similar to Google Classroom or any of the other ones that school districts are using. And honestly, the way that I use it was I would try something and then I would get feedback from my students. And I would ask them, what do you like? What do you not like? What is challenging? And then I would take the formative assessment and I would try to implement it. And I would continue to just try things. So just like Joey said, the trial and error piece. And when I didn't understand something, I would reach out to a colleague or to the internet to try to figure out what are they doing to make those decisions on how are they making those adjustments. And then ultimately over time, as I became more confident with it, I began to make my own professional developments on them for my campus and for the broader community, because I was taking my own personal experience exactly like we're doing now. And I was able to talk about the pitfalls that I had. How did I increase student engagement? Because I let them buy into it. How did I get them to actually do their work? Well, I heard what they found interesting. And so just the trial and error and actually asking questions opposed to thinking that my way was the best way, but really getting that input really gave me the confidence and the courage to try those things and then to ultimately implement them into the needs of my students, which is really what this is all about.
Great. One tool that I am learning right now with some of my local teachers is called 360cities.net. I'll drop it in the chat. And it's sort of like Google Earth on steroids. They have a lot of teacher resources, but we're talking about globalness and working on a global, kind of like a global festival. And you can go anywhere and look, and you can actually, when you do that, and you bring in like their grandparents, and they get to look at a town that they were from, maybe in Europe, you bring together this multi-generational experience. So I'm all about visual and the global right now. It's kind of the pathway I'm taking with tech, but especially that immersive component. And it's really a great tool for that. And then when you accompany it with like the tools that Epernay and Ryan talked about, what you can create is limitless. It really is. You can just keep going and going.
May I share a second one, Epernay, Darla, and Ryan? Would that be okay? Okay, this is EdTech level, I think 1,000 for me in my heart and my emotions because of the amount of stress that goes into this for me. I am working on using Excel to execute some very complex systematic data analysis that helps me to determine how best to support the community members here at Moreland. And in my role as an educational leader, I need Excel to be able to do a lot of very complex functions very quickly. And it's hard to be able to use all of the different formulas and the formatting to take thousands of pieces of data and then translate it into actionable information. Well, I have been using artificial intelligence through a language processing model known as ChatGPT to teach myself how to function with Excel. So I will literally go, and as I'm experimenting with Excel, I watch my YouTube videos, I read my articles, and I hit a roadblock in my ability to use it. I go to ChatGPT, which is an artificial intelligence, and I'll tell it where I'm at and what I'm doing. And the thing will give me solutions, and they work. So I think we're in an entirely new era. You've heard in this conversation everything from how to use technology in the classroom, how to use technology to extend outside of the classroom and hybrid learning. And now for me, how to use educational technology to facilitate leadership in education. And you've heard a variety of ways that we as educators have learned to use and integrate that educational technology. As we're transitioning to the next question, I'd like to share a brief quote. You might have seen me sort of looking down. It's because I'm reading a book by Dr. Cal Newport, who is a professor at my alma mater, Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., Epernay. And Carl said in his book that more or less current economic thinking, as he has surveyed, argues that the unprecedented growth and impact of technology are creating a massive restructuring of our economy. In this new economy, three groups will have a particular advantage: those who can work well and creatively with intelligent machines. And there are two other groups, but I just want to stop with that one, because I think that's what we're talking about right now, learning how to use technology to do what we do better. So thank you for sharing that. And if you're interested in learning more about Carl Newport, I will put the book that I'm reading called Deep Work into the chat space in a moment. So let's continue and talk about challenges, and then we'll move from here into our attendee voted question. So panelists, the question in the chat space says, what are some potential drawbacks, risks, or challenges associated with using technology in the classroom? And how can teachers mitigate them? Ryan, I'm going to ask you to head us off for this one.
Great. This is an excellent question, because everything worth doing usually has a risk. And I think when we think about this, the first one that comes to mind is what happens when the technology doesn't work? What happens when the internet's down? What happens when the program chooses not to cooperate? And those are all great questions. And the honest answer is, I don't have a perfect answer because we can't foresee everything that's happening. But what I can tell you, though, is that the time that you're going to spend doing these and the time that you're going to spend learning these, although you can't get that time back, I do believe it is going to propel you forward in your ability to teach and prepare students for what comes next. So the best thing that I could say to mitigate these challenges is to always have a plan B, like Darla kept saying earlier. And even if that plan B is not as grand or as great as the lesson you had planned, it's better than nothing. And ultimately, just like in life, not everything is going to go the way that we want it to do. But if we have not tried to progress forward with other inventions or other ideas, the world would be very different now than it currently is. You know, the one example I use with my students is if no one had decided to try to build a car, we'd still be riding around on horses, which would make travel so much more challenging. And so ultimately, yes, there are risks, and those risks are limitless. And there are drawbacks because there are going to be times that you do lose instructional time. There are going to be times that your students do get a little bit more rambunctious as they're waiting for things to load or different challenges to come up. But by having a plan B, knowing that nothing's going to work out perfectly, it's going to be okay. And honestly, I think your students, if they see that you are trying, they're going to recognize that in themselves, and they're going to understand that it is okay to have that growth mindset and to struggle at times and to really try to just take little baby steps until ultimately it works itself out. So I know that didn't exactly give you a perfect answer on what the risks are, but I think that's because we don't know what all the risks are. And ultimately, it's just worth you trying for the betterment of your students.
So Ryan, I'm going to push back and say, what do we do to mitigate the risks of trying some of these technologies? We don't want to, I agree with you, we don't want to back away, but what can we do to ensure that as we're trying these things, we create a safe and nurturing and ethical learning environment?
Yeah, so
And Ryan, I'm sorry to interrupt. You don't have to answer that right now. I will open that up to everyone and say, Ryan, you could go first, or you could say, I'm going to pause and let Epernay or Darla go, but it's up to you.
let me think on that question, and I'm going to pass it off to one of them.
You know, to answer that question, I would say I don't think enough classrooms, enough teachers realize the power, part of classroom management, to have sort of a creed or a rule for using technology in the classroom. Sort of an honor that they, holding them accountable, rules. How do you use technology in my classroom, in our classroom? What is safe? What is, what is the protocol for getting them out and putting them away? What are some websites that, just talking about netiquette or digital citizenship early on before you use the technology. You can't do that enough. If you don't have a school that has a technology handbook, like my children came up in a school that they signed it, we signed it, the parents signed it. But letting them know that this is a tool, it's fun, but it's not something they can just take and run with. Setting that foundation first is going to set you up for success. And bringing in other administrators, the teachers, the parents, and because safety is a concern. It still is. That's not gone away. How is my child going to be safe? Is screen time something they need? So all of those old threads are still there, and you have to feel supported too to use the technology. If you feel like you're on an island trying something by yourself, make sure, just make sure that you can and that you feel confident. And involve the kids. I love Ryan's idea of involving the students and showing them that you don't know either. Let's see where this takes us.
I think that list of norms is very important. And I'm glad you mentioned the screen time, because that is definitely a potential drawback and risk and challenge that is coming up a lot, especially during the virtual learning in 2020 and 2021. For the screen time, especially because I was teaching young learners, we'd always would have a time limit. And that was actually part of our norm. So students knew that it was a certain amount of time that they could spend on the screen, and the rest of the time is devoted to more of the hands-on learning. That's a part of our norms. And then thinking of that plan B. So if their time on the computer, if something happens because of technology issues, and you want to ensure that they're still learning, what is the plan B? So what is the backup? What is the hands-on activity they can do where they can still master the learning objective if technology fails us?
To that point about around screen time, I think what we've been learning is that, as I put in the chat space, not all screen time is the same. There's some research that I would encourage you all to look at if you have the time around the ways that screen time should be considered and used as a factor in planning instruction, knowing that it impacts different learners in different ways in different parts of their learning journey. But with that, Ryan, would you like to add anything?
I would. To mitigate the risk, I think you just need to take it slow. And what I mean by that is we're talking about tech tools in a way where we sound like this is the end all be all. And I think that we have to kind of tailor that back a little bit. There's a methodology called blended learning, which really does kind of incorporate face-to-face, hands-on writing, manipulatives, and the tech side of things. And I think when you start digging into the tech tools and you start really trying to breach into those, knowing that there is a two sides to the coin kind of idea, taking it slow allows you to do what you're comfortable with while adding a little bit of risk. And then as you build confidence, as your students understand the norms and the expectations and the safety requirements that you've put in the classroom, you can really start to kind of push that boundary a little bit more. So I guess my answer to this is don't just go full tilt into it. Don't go into your classroom tomorrow and say, okay, I'm scrapping the lesson plans. We're going to use tech tools. I love the drive there, but I think really trying to find something that's going to complement what you're already doing to figure out your confidence level and to figure out the needs of your students, then you can slowly begin to add more and more until you're comfortable with kind of that blended classroom.
Thank you for all of those responses, Ryan, Darla, and Epernay. And if you would permit me, I would only add to continue to consider the important safety norms of our classroom and how they apply in an online environment, in a digital environment. Consider and think about, as creative problem solvers, as we all are as educators, what we need to put in place to ensure that our students are safe when they are using educational technology and to ensure that they are protected when they're using educational technology, in particular when they're doing things like recording themselves, using video and audio, when they are accessing the internet, and when they are collaborating in ways that asks them to communicate outside of the classroom. We must consider and remember that these are powerful tools, and with powerful tools come lots of responsibility on our part. So as promised, we're going to have a poll and hear from you all with regard to your questions and what you would like us to discuss for our last topic. But before we do, I'd just like to spotlight our master's degree in educational technology, for that really is the inspiration of what we're doing here. We have a master's degree in educational technology that helps you to learn to effectively integrate tech into curriculum design and instructional coaching, to create instructional design solutions and to implement those solutions in using the appropriate infrastructure and the appropriate tools. This is an add-on to our teacher certification program. So it empowers educators to become technology leaders who direct and coach other teachers and even school leaders in improving student learning and enhancing professional development. I'd like to share with you very briefly this photo that was taken, I think, 2 days ago. On the left, you see Zuri Richards, who is a graduate of our master's degree in educational technology from 2018. And now he currently serves as an IT manager at a prestigious international school in South America. And next to him is his wife, Dr. Trudy Ann Richards, who graduated from our very first Teach Now cohort and is a school principal. She also went on after the Teach Now program to earn her doctorate degree. So you can see that our programs help folks advance in their careers and achieve what they want to. Zuri is not a classroom teacher and has never been a classroom teacher, but he went through the Teach Now program to be an EdTech specialist in schools, for that was his goal. When you enroll in the Master's Degree in Educational Technology program, you develop a strong foundation of EdTech tools and strategies. You apply those to coaching and supporting educators and educational professional development. you integrate models of instructional design and program development, and you create technology improvement plans for your schools or your districts. You can find out more information by visiting www.moreland.edu and or by reaching out to me, where I can support you and ensure you've got all the information that you need.
Something that's beautiful with technology, it's just certain little tweaks that you can make to ensure that you are making your lessons equitable and addressing students with diverse needs. So something that we have right now for this webinar is we have closed captioning. So if you're showing a video, it's so easy to change the speed of the video so that students can watch it at a slower pace, as well as allow closed captioning to appeal to students that might need to follow along by reading the words on the screen. Also, technology can meet the needs of students that need more of a challenge. So perhaps you're doing a lesson and students really mastered it well, and you want to push them, have them go out and explore and research more about a particular subject through technology.
And I see that Dennis has said, or Denise, I'm not sure how you pronounce your name, has said that they also would like to know more about student-family relationships. So maybe, Epernay, after we get to the end of this, you could come around and share a little bit about that. But with that, we'll go to Ryan. Thank you, Epernay.
So I'll talk about assessment and data gathering. I think so often when we're trying to facilitate a classroom, we're trying to figure out what our students need, what do they know, how do I redirect my lesson? And one really unique thing about the technology tool, similar to what Joey was saying about his Excel spreadsheet earlier, is it's going to provide instantaneous data for you. It's going to give you instant feedback, whether it's the formative or the summative assessment. I think even about the summative, whether you're giving a test or a project, manually grading those does take time. And although that time is very valuable because you get to truly see and identify what the students' needs are and where they are having success and where they're struggling, by having that all online, you can get that response much quicker and create that plan or that needs assessment for that student so that they know exactly where they need to go, where they need to improve on. And so I think really using some of these tools to get that instant feedback and to show the class, maybe on an overhead or on the projector, allowing them to see, just like we've done with the polls here, it allows the students to see where they're at, and then they can choose, do they need to put more effort into it, or do they feel confident enough to continue their own individual learning path? So I would highly encourage trying to find ways to incorporate that into some of your lessons and trying to see if it does help you save time, but also help give the students more intentional feedback as well.
I guess I love all these questions. I wish we had more time. Where did the hour go? But in response to student engagement and collaboration, give them choice. Ask them. If you get feedback from your students and you start using the technology, pretty soon you know what technology to use based on what they want, not only what you're teaching them, but what they want to do. Include the greater community, parents, businesses within the community. There are untapped technology resources within your community. We had a retired astronaut in our community here that became the favorite for every third grade curriculum in the district because he had time and he wanted to, and he brought the technology to life with his stories. Connect with global classrooms. That global perspective brings it into their world and makes it more relevant and applicable and solutionary. And that can all be done through technology as an engagement gateway, if you will.
If I heard you all correctly, Epernay said we must leverage accessibility tools within the educational technologies that we use in the classroom. Ryan said that we need to leverage tools to share data with our students to help them make informed decisions about how they're going to spend their time learning. And Darla helped us to understand the value of choice in learning and allowing technology to give students a voice in the learning that's taking place and giving them access to community members that may inspire them along their journeys. So that's what I would write down if you're taking notes, everybody. We have come to the hour, and I want to be very mindful of the fact that this was an EdTech Essentials webinar. This was designed to give a broad overview with some concrete best practices that would allow you at whatever level of expertise you entered this webinar to take something valuable and meaningful away from the conversation to apply in your classroom. So if all you take away is find accessibility options or share the data or provide students with choice or any number of other things that were discussed in today's webinar, then you have had a successful hour with us. And I hope that you enjoyed that time. We will send a recording of the webinar along with information about our master's degree in educational technology program. I will also ask our panelists to send me over any information that you'd like to share. For instance, Epernay, I know that you're going to have a lot of information about family engagement and classroom management. So if you could share maybe an article or two, then maybe we could also share that with the panelists, and I'll make sure that they get, with the registrants, and I'll make sure that they get that. If you benefited from this, the information and the strategies that we've shared, then I implore you to please share the webinar, which will come in an email in the coming days, with anyone in your network who might benefit. And for those interested in deepening their understanding of this and other best practices in effective teaching and learning, you can request information about Moreland University's online teacher preparation program or any of our master's degrees. The panelists here are faculty in those programs, and so you get to see the expertise and the passion and the diversity in this space today. So on behalf of Moreland University and the diverse, passionate, excited faculty members and staff members who make up this incredible institution, in addition to the thousands of candidates and alumni around the world who have taken part, I thank you all for being with us today, and I wish you all the very best as you continue on. Bye-bye, everyone.